Today I'm talking about imposter syndrome, and I'm going to share with you my tips and strategies on dealing with my own imposter syndrome while building indie apps, or at least living a little bit better with it in my life. Let's go! That's the title screen. This is Diary of an Indie App Developer. I'm your host, Adam Lytle. I build indie apps. I share my journey. You subscribe. That's the deal. I've built over 50 apps over the last 4 years. I went through a process of building an app every single month. Of those, about 44% have actually generated revenue. 10% of them have been failures. And I've also been acquired or had 10 of my apps sold. Last week, I talked about developing indie apps, balancing life, balancing family, and doing all the things. But I've got an admission to make. I really struggled to get that video out last week. I ended up recording it multiple times. So on the Monday, I recorded it. On the Tuesday, I wasn't happy with the recording for the Monday, so I re-recorded it. It wasn't until Wednesday where I recorded it for the third time that I was happy with the actual content and quality of the video. In that time, my son was unwell, and at one stage I was editing the video while sitting on the floor next to his cot, or in America you might call it a crib. So sitting next to his crib, next to his cot, editing the video. And it dawned on me that I was struggling myself with work-life balance. I felt like I was talking about something that I wasn't even living myself. It led me to question, what is authenticity anyway? How do you be authentic? Now, I know when I see authenticity, I see someone being authentic. You can just tell straight away that they're being authentic. But how do you quantify that, or how do you put that into words? What makes someone authentic? And I know any time that I've ever wanted to sort of work out what something is, and I don't know what something is, I start to work out what the opposite of that is. So it's very easy to pinpoint what authenticity isn't, or what the opposite of authenticity is. For me, authenticity, or the opposite of authenticity, is mimicking others. So like copying others' style, or copying others the way that what they do, not being unique, seeking validation. So people who are looking to be validated by others, making up stories or not being truthful. I think that sort of stems from people, or I've seen people who will make up stories or exaggerate who they are because they don't think that their story is relevant or their story is important. Not owning their mistakes, or not owning my own mistakes. I think authenticity comes with the ups and the downs of every personality trait that you have. So you can't just over-exaggerate the positives. You have to also show the negatives, but in a nice way, not in a condescending and self-deprecating sort of way, but more in it's a good tool to show your journey and to learn along the way and bring people into your process while learning. And the other negative of authenticity is just comparing yourself to others. And I know this is something that I have a pretty difficult time with. I know, especially with this YouTube channel. So I've got a following on Twitter, and I thought if I set up a YouTube channel, I'm going to get some sort of level of audience following me over from my Twitter account, and share some stories about building indie apps and just following on with the content that I create on Twitter. My goal has been to get to 501 subscribers by my birthday in July, and that was my validation. So if I get to 501 subscribers by July, that's my validation to say that this is an idea that will work, or this is something that I should pursue. And then similar people in the indie development space have created their own YouTube channel, and specifically I'm talking about Nico here. So Nico released his own video. It's gone absolutely through the charts, like 100,000 views. Within a week of him uploading his first video, he's already being monetized, going through the process being monetized with YouTube. So initially I was really happy with my little trajectory and my lane of going from 0 subscribers to 501 subscribers within like 6 weeks. I thought that's achievable, just under 100 subscribers per week. In that time, I can learn my craft. I can learn what the channel's about and sort of make the mistakes and go from there. So I thought it was a nice sort of trajectory and a nice path to go on. And then Nico comes along and absolutely just blows it out of the water. 100,000 views, thousands of subscribers. And I'm sitting there thinking I'm sitting on 250 subscribers at the moment. My content's getting 800 views at the maximum. I felt like a failure, but only a few hours earlier, I felt like I felt really motivated to do what I was doing. So immediately I found myself comparing myself to Nico and Nico's success, and a little bit of jealousy creeps up. You think, why him? Why not me? But I sort of had to stop and think and readdress myself and think, no, like this guy he's done the editing, he's put the time in, it's clearly great content, he's packaged it well. This is something to aspire to. This is not something to sort of bring down. This is something to go, okay, there is an audience and there is someone that I can sort of aspire to and reach to. And there's a role model to sort of follow in the footsteps of. So he's helped to do some validation on the steps that I'm on, but also I've been down that process of thinking, what sort of content should I produce? Should I try to be more mainstream, try to have more likes, more subscribers, more views? I've been analyzing YouTube videos. I've been looking at it more in terms of putting on a creator hat instead of putting on a consumer hat. And my son, my toddler, just got a new little monster truck, like a tiny little monster truck toy. And I wanted to model to him how to play with this monster truck. So I'd sit there. Hang on a minute, I'll go get the monster truck. So my son got this monster truck as a gift from his grandmother, my mother, and he's only a toddler. He's never played with a monster truck before, and I could see he wasn't quite sure how to play with it or what to do with the monster truck, like jumps and sick tricks. Yeah, so he wasn't able to work out how to play with this monster truck. So I sat down with him and I modeled the behavior of how to play with a monster truck. You do jumps and you can had some other little cars. You can drive over the cars, and he had a monster truck, I had a monster truck, and we're giving each other high fives, all that sort of thing. And I thought what would be great is the kids are consuming some content on YouTube. It was on the TV. I thought let's put on some like kids playing with monster trucks, so that my toddler can see children playing with monster trucks and know how to interact with a monster truck and play with a monster truck. So we did a search, kids playing with monster trucks, and pages and pages and pages of kids playing with monster trucks content. And every single picture is like a kid going, like that YouTube face, like over expressive. There's slime and there's monster trucks going through flames and all sorts of things. So we load up a couple of them, and the format is exactly the same. They're all copying the exact same format, which is take the monster truck and do something extreme and stupid with it to get an extreme and stupid reaction from the YouTuber's kids in the video. So the monster truck's going through slime, it's getting messy, it's getting blown up, it's being thrown across the yard, it's being taken up in a drone, like all of these really extravagant, stupid ways to play with a monster truck. And all I wanted was just a role model that my son could look up to, could see other kids playing with the monster truck so he can emulate it. Now, if he's only exposed to content all the time of kids playing with these monster trucks and blowing them up and putting them through slime and just taking it to the absolute extreme, then he's going to think that's how you play with things. And I don't think this is a problem with just my kids consuming content. I think this is a problem in general with the content that we're consuming. Just no role models who have a sensible approach and show the way, instead of just an extreme, outright stupid video about blowing things up when it should be about kids interacting with something. My daughter, we're getting into some reading, and there's a series of books that she loves, and they're really good for learning about reading. Some of the words rhyme, and the rhyme words are highlighted. And we were able to find a video, lots of videos actually, of kids just in their own voice, just reading to the camera the story in front of my daughter. And my daughter didn't have a lot of confidence with reading at the time. She was struggling with, she thought everything had to be perfect. She didn't know a word and she wasn't giving it a shot. And then we watched some videos on YouTube with kids reading the same book as her. She had a book in front of her. The kids were reading it, and the kids were fumbling over the words and really giving it their best shot. And it was like a light switch for my daughter. She turned from not wanting to give it a go to being a bit scared to read words that she didn't know, to all of a sudden seeing her peers and seeing people on YouTube, a platform that she respects and a platform that she gets a lot of her content from, reading these stories. And even some of the kids had little jokes that they put throughout the pages. Now, every time that we read this book, we have to put these little jokes in, scatter it throughout the story, and she laughs at the pictures and the illustrations. But where was I? So that was really my observation about Nico's content, and my observation was about my own content that I'm trying to create, bringing it back and focusing on the day-to-day, those little things that really get mistaken and really get left behind. So today's topic about imposter syndrome. I really want to delve into those more human elements, the more human aspect of it. So it's not just about like, be authentic and be yourself. I want to dive a lot deeper into it, because this is a process that I've been through in the past week. And I think some of the learnings that I've had, I can share those experiences. So I've made some other notes. Now that we know what the opposite of authenticity is, I can reverse engineer it to work out what authenticity means for me. We've kind of already touched on it, but to put into words, it's like it's being original, not seeking validation, being truthful to yourself. I think this is a point that I wanted to stop on. Being truthful to others is one thing, but being truthful to yourself is another. It's so easy just to ignore criticism, ignore even the positives. Sometimes we can filter the positives and think that they're just placating us. Owning my own mistakes. Like I said, I think being authentic is not only about the positives, but also about the negatives. And ultimately, if I've made a mistake, being honest with myself firstly, and then owning it secondly. It's a muscle that I've been able to build over time. It's something that didn't come naturally, because you have to have a lot of insight. Once I've had that insight, and once I've removed the ego, I can look at it a bit more objectively and share the experience with others. And finally, authenticity for me means sticking to my own lane. The first thing I always notice when imposter syndrome rears its ugly head is self-doubt. Self-doubt is the first thing. It's the first part of imposter syndrome that I identify. And it's that process of just those little, it starts off very small. So it starts off with this app is going to be not going to get the reach that you want it to get. This video is not going to resonate the way you want it to resonate. And it starts to sort of compound and starts to, like a snowball, it gets bigger and bigger into, why does anyone even download your apps anyway? What value do you even offer to anyone? And there's so many apps in the App Store doing what you're doing already. You're just making noise and you're not. So this whole spiraling out of control rabbit hole opens up and just sucks me into it. And because I'm pragmatic, I start to listen to those doubts, and I start to put together a plan. So it's like, okay. So To overcome the poor downloads, I can do A, B, C. To overcome, and I start giving authority to the self-doubt and feeding the self-doubt even more. Because no matter what solution you come up with, self-doubt will always creep in and say, yeah, you can get more downloads, but who cares? Your app's still crap. It's like, okay, thanks for that self-doubt. And the thing that I've noticed is the self-doubt is not the imposter syndrome. Sorry. Imposter syndrome. It's only a symptom of the imposter syndrome. It's the part of the imposter syndrome that is the surface level. Everything else is deeper. What I found is the self-doubt is not the imposter syndrome. It's only a symptom of my imposter syndrome. So I want to ask you a question. Have a think about this. What industries do you think suffer from imposter syndrome the most? I would hazard a guess. I would say that industries that do a lot of thinking, a lot of mental work, or a lot of creative work, they're the industries that would suffer the most from imposter syndrome. I don't ever remember having imposter syndrome or self-doubt when I was doing mowing lawns and doing yard maintenance. I would rock up, I would do the job, I'd get paid for the job, I would get some satisfaction from doing the job. People would say, wow, you did such a great job. It was very messy before and now it's clean. So when I was doing mowing, I could see I would exert myself physically. So I knew that I did hard work and I knew that I started off with one state and I got it to a state that was much better. Now, when I'm an indie app developer and I'm making my own apps and I'm coming up with my own ideas or I'm coming up with my own creatives for marketing, it's all subjective. I could come up with something. I could spend the next 10 hours working on something that fails, or I could spend the next 10 hours working on something that's a success. And the line between the success and the failure, a little bit of luck, a little bit of right timing, but a lot about subjective outcomes. And why is that? Why is creative work or mind work more subjective and more prone to imposter syndrome? And I put it down to three things. Well, four things. So we're working alone and in isolation where negative thoughts can spiral. So we can start to question our own value, our own worth, and even our identity, especially if our identity is tied to this thing, tied to this idea. The next note that I've made, note number 2, is that we lack a community. We lack an incidental community. So if you're away coding on your computer, you're away doing your own marketing, you're an indie app developer who has no team, like me. I've got no team. I do it all on my own. Who does the indie solo app developer talk with? If I talk to family or I talk to friends, I can see their eyes glaze over. I can see they're not really interested in the day-to-day coding problems that I'm coming up with, or even just the marketing side of things. It's out of their life. It's out of their wheelhouse. Fine, that's great. But if I was to work in an office or I was to work around other people, I would have those incidental conversations all the time. Hey, I'm come up with this problem with the API. Have you come up with this problem before? Oh, you're approaching it wrong. This is how you should do it. Instead, as an indie app developer, I'm going down the rabbit hole on my own, exploring it on my own, relying on things like ChatGPT and Stack Overflow. I mean, Stack Overflow is not the best for imposter syndrome, is it? You jump on there and you've got a problem. You got a problem with the API. You got a problem with some code, and you do a Google search and you go onto Stack Overflow. And the first comment is telling the person how ridiculous they are that they've got that problem in the first place. And it's like, well, by proxy, that first comment's calling me ridiculous because I'm also coming up against that exact same problem. I'm helpful, and I guess that brings me to number 3, my next point, which is being self-taught. So I've never worked in a team. I've never learned any coding from a person, except for like YouTube videos and Udemy, Code Academy, and YouTube. I've never been in a coding course. I've never been in a team of coders. And I don't think my code would be the way things are done in an organization or the way that other people are doing it. I've got my own way of doing it. I've got my own structure. It seems to work well for me, but I don't think it would work well for anyone else. I think if people opened up the hood and had a look at my code, they would be horrified. And actually, I do have a story where that has been the case. So when you sell an app, and you sell an app to an investor who's going to just buy the app to market it and generate revenue, they fall back on you to make changes and update the app. That's great. I still get control over my code, and no one else is looking at my code except for me, because the person that's bought it is not a code person. But recently I've had a few of my own peers, my own coders purchase my apps. It makes me very nervous. The imposter syndrome comes in huge waves, because all of a sudden I'm handing over the keys to the castle, and the castle is in shambles. You walk through the front room and things are in the wrong place. The bedroom's not a bedroom. That's actually the some weird function I've created, like a room for catching up. I don't know. A bad analogy. You get my point. When your own peers are looking over your code, and your own peers, you perceive that your own peers are going to judge you, it's a bit more challenging. So in one of the apps that I sold, I did go through and I tried to document it. I'm very sorry for my documentation. It wasn't that great. So it's a long-winded way to sort of get to my point, which is we're isolating ourselves in bubbles, we're working on our own, and we're self-taught. I have to find ways to seek connection and to connect with other like-minded people. And how I've done that, one of my favorite ways of connecting with other like-minded people, I'm doing it with this channel. So I'm putting content out there that will attract same people as me and build a community. But there's already an established community on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And if you're not part of it, it's called the Build in Public community. So this is a community that help each other grow, help each other with problems, and it's sort of those incidental conversations that I was referring to previously. It's those incidental conversations about what's going on in life, sharing insights into ideas and codes and strategies, failures, successes, all of the things. To recap, overcoming imposter syndrome involves identifying self-doubt, being authentic, ignoring unnecessary judgment and noise, embracing vulnerability, and staying connected. I hope these tips have helped you as much as they've helped me on my indie app development journey. So if you like this content, you like my channel, you like my journey, you want to hear more content like this, or you got some ideas about some topics I want to explore, I don't really want to explore topics like how to code this and how to code that. I want to dig a little bit deeper, like I've done in this episode today, get to the bottom and offer some practical advice through my own experiences, and just trying to sort of be that role model type content. If it reaches 501 subscribers, I know that there's a need, and there's 501 people who are looking to, that are learning from my experiences. And if that's you and you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you have subscribed, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. I do look at I've got my little widget that I've created that tracks how many subscribers I've got on YouTube. And I always get a nice, like a dopamine hit every time it goes up. So thanks I notice you when you subscribe. Thank you for subscribing.